Hey guys, welcome back. This is Lucid, jumping back into Bumble Rumble. This is going to be our last turn. It's turn 153, and the game has ended. There's really nothing anybody could have done to stop me. None of my forts were cracked. I mean, there were token things that happened, but not really. So yeah, that's it, guys. We did it. We are the doers who did it. TNG was making a move over this way. I didn't nuke them just so we could have a good final battle, but if it were real, I would have nuked this thing to high heaven. It would have been basically destroyed. But if I didn't, he probably could have taken it. What he also said in the game chat is that he was very close to taking Shiniyama's throne right here. Like he was going to take it this turn. So if he got this one, and he was also apparently going to take this one this turn. So if he got both of those this turn, and he knocked me off this one, he actually had a shot at winning, like in the next one or two turns. So turns out it was actually pretty close. He almost pulled it out and won. And yeah, that's pretty amazing. But yeah, he also had, the turn before, I don't have the battle, unfortunately. I tried to do Astral Window on it to see it, but we missed this battle because there were domes up here that I think blocked Astral Window. So what we're going to do this episode is we're going to take a look at score graphs. And we'll start with the province graph. You can see there's a ton of players, so it's going to be really hard for me to kind of talk about all the nations. But we'll spend a little bit of time here in the beginning. You can see Arco actually did really well at the beginning. They were one of the biggest right out of the gate. For if you look at early year one expansion, they were really big. Pangea was also really big. And then the final one who was big, I'm not sure who that is actually. Oh, it was Relay. Yeah, I knew that. The other one who was really big at the beginning was Relay. So these three players actually were the best out of the gate, which I find kind of interesting because they all kind of ended up falling off. No, that's not Vanarus. Who is that? Relay in the? Yeah, oh no. Who is this up here? Oh, Yis. Yis actually climbed to be the biggest by about, where would this be? This would be about turn 40, 35, 40. Probably about turn 40, they were the biggest by a margin. And then here you can see where, this is where I attacked Yis, and then they started going down a little, and I started getting bigger. And then we were kind of grinding into each other a little bit. And at this point, they had lost so much of their armies that they couldn't keep up with the raiding, and the war went in my favor. And then I went up like this, and they went down like this. And then they just plummeted as I... Once your Movark stacks die with Yes, it's bad news bears. So, that's what happened here. But Yes, for a while, like when I attacked them, they were the biggest player on the board. And so I wasn't like going after... like the easy nation. They did just have a massive loss of troops, which was partially due to like some game bug where they were attacking a monolith or some immobile, and then the battle timed out, so they didn't retreat. They weren't going to kill the monolith, so the bug wasn't like that they killed the monolith. The bug was that they didn't get allowed to retreat, they just died. But that gave us an opportunity to jump on them with Mr. Hands, and he killed a bunch of them. And over the course of the war, we killed way more Morvarks than, died in that bug. But that was an important part for, which is it's kind of unfortunate, but yeah, what are you gonna do? The game has bugs in it. Anyway, so that was the war with Yis. And I mean, when that happened, they probably still had, and the Yis player could chime in if they're watching. But I bet you, when I first teleported Mr. Hands onto them, I bet you they still had a total of like 80 Morvarks, which is a huge amount. At least that many, I bet. Could be wrong. The thing with Yis, and one of the reasons Yis was so strong on this map, is that their cap circle was just phenomenal. Like, when you're Yis and you have 6 underwater cap circle, that's so strong. Like, so that means they can get just a huge amount of Morvark Knight production. Because normally you're like resource capped, right? So this is going to give you a ton of resources to do it. And then in addition, they get all of this, and then they get land too. So anyway. So Yis was the biggest for a little bit. I think I had thought this was Vanarus. Where's Vanarus? No, Vanarus was never very big. Okay. So I was looking at this graph earlier. I thought it was Vanarus. Then I got to be the biggest right after I started my fight with Yis. But then the fight with Yis, there was a lot of raiding on both sides. It wasn't necessarily going well. And meanwhile, TNG was just chowing down, I think on Ulm at the time. So TNG was catching up to me. And then I was in a grindy war with Yis. He was, I think, having some trouble with some with some Ulmish super combatants. Then I kind of broke free in the war with Yis, but he also broke free in the war with TNG, and now he's also eating Satis. So, and I think by this time he's eaten TNG. I mean, by this time he's eaten Ulm and Satis. And he kind of stays. If you look at him, he kind of stayed stagnant here for a long time. A lot of this was while he was fighting me. So he was fighting me, chipping away. If he had small armies, like really small things, I would kill it with thugs. If he had medium-sized armies, I would kill it with my armies. If he had huge armies, I would nuke it with flames from the sky and murdering winter. And that was basically what was happening here. And through this whole time, he took some province. He took, I think, a fort or 2 off of me. And maybe like 5 provinces total. I mean, there was a ton of raiding that went back and forth, but in terms of things he kind of more or less permanently kept, it was not much for like this whole period of time. Meanwhile, I was just buckling down, holding the fort with him, and I was gobbling up Relay. Like, or no, I think this is the part where, God, what was happening? I was finishing off Yis here. I think there was still a little bit of work to do. Finishing off Yis. Pythium was attacking me. Where's Pythium? Okay, I think this is when Pythium started attacking me, but then it didn't go that well for Pythium. Yeah, this is when Pythium started attacking me. They got up a little bit, but then they were down by the end of the war, because I was out-raiding Pythium and killing all their raiders. So by the end of the war with Pythium, I'd actually taken a little bit off him. And then, yeah, TNG was just kind of grinding it out through with me the whole time here. Meanwhile, this was me finishing off Yis. Once Yis was finished off, there was only about 10 turns where I was really locked into a grind with TNG and Pythium. Everybody was attacking me here. I wasn't getting any bigger. But they weren't necessarily making progress. And like during this time I was killing Pythium armies, TNG wasn't making any progress. And this is how it was going to continue. I was going to stay at war with TNG for all of this time. But what happened here is I declared war on Relay. And you can see, actually, I declared war, like, right here. So I guess I lost a little bit of ground. Some of me holding steady here is taking land off of Relay, while I'm probably losing a little bit of ground on the land fronts. During this time, I was totally prepared to lose all of Pangaea. I wanted it to happen slowly. But I thought it might happen, that I could lose everything. Turns out it didn't, and turns out it not happening was actually really important, because that's what allowed me to get a strong blood economy, which is what really allowed me to roll over everybody later. I can't even believe I'm saying that. Get a strong blood economy with middle-aged Atlantis. What the fuck has happened this game? I can't believe it, honestly, looking back on it. So anyway, that was happening. So then we had Relay, right? And then after this, we kind of... Not too much happened. There wasn't a ton of progress I could make on my land neighbors. And during this time, I was saving to get Nexus up. And I don't know when I got Nexus up. I think I got it up like right here. And then once I had Nexus up, I was spending time. This time I was really incubating. I think I was preparing to get Nexus up maybe like here. But then I was like incubating because I had to get my wish farm set up and all these other things. So, and I was forting up during this time too. So I could have been spending money on building armies and trying to conquer more people, but I didn't feel very confident that I could hold major part. Like, I didn't feel confident I could take land from Tianqi. I didn't feel like I could take and hold land from Pythium. And that if I did, it would be so enormously costly that it wouldn't be worth it. Like, the land would never pay for itself. So instead, I put all that energy into forts and into Arcane Nexus, and then into setting up a wish farm. And by this time, I think I had set it up, and at this point, I was getting my wish farm generating troops. And by this time, like around here is when I took the Shinuyama throne. Let's see when I took the Relayan throne. This was the Relayan throne, and this was the Shinuyama throne. Relay Shinuyama. So if we go back to provinces. Yeah, here I took the Relay throne. This was while I don't know if Nexus was up, but it was while I was kind of incubating. Here was Shinuyama. Taking their throne. Their underwater throne. But after this, I think had my wish farm set up, and I was ready to get going. And then you can see once I went to war with Pythium, which, again, we'll flash the Pythium graph right here. Pythium, if we look at Pythium's story, it was kind of going okay, but then they made war with me and it got worse. They lost a ton of resources here too. Not just the income, but like the army stuff. Like if we look at the army size, yeah, things were kind of going okay. Well, no, they didn't actually lose that much. I guess it was growing and it just stopped. I thought this war cost them more than it did. Because this war with me, they didn't actually lose that much. Okay. But then coming down here, you can see when Vanarus attacked, they just basically elfed them right at the beginning of the war. And then Pythium was fighting to take it back. And then it looks like it was kind of going, it was a little bit of grindy break even, but it looks like it was kind of going in Vanarus's favor. But then Tianqi jumped to Vanarus, and you can see Tianqi jumping up while Vanarus goes down. And then this is Tianqi slowly eating Vanarus. And then here, Pythium, you can see they get jumped. They kind of stabilize for a bit where nothing happens. And then this is where we attack them. And then it was downhill from them. Who survived it all and had almost no change for this part of the game is Shinuyama. So I would say if you have a flat score graph like this, like if you look at where he was on turn 60 and you look at where he was on turn 100, basically the same. He got like 5 or 6 more provinces. So back here he was like, I have to do suicide. This is literally, he was attacking me here and he was like, I have to do suicidal things so that, like, dive my guys into the ocean against the underwater superpower. Like, and fighting guys with like water 5 underwater, oh my god. The gym efficiency I get on living water is crazy. But anyway, he felt compelled to do this. And his thinking was, if I don't stop Atlantis now, then they're gonna win. They're gonna throw rush. Well, you know, they tactically were pretty good at scripting some things. They potentially could have won a war against one of their neighbors. So anyway, if they had some nice little growth rate here, they could have been easily been, by the time the game ended, one of the superpowers. But that's it. The player played through the whole time. I don't think they ever got a sub. They were very good about doing turns and things like that. And so I think, anyway, for this player particularly, I think if they made strategically better decisions, they could have been a superpower by the end. Because the things that you need to do well in late game, they had a lot of. They had clever scripting, and they had good attention to detail, and they did all their turns with time and energy, which those are all really important in late game. But yeah, suiciding into the water when your two biggest problems in the game are that you're surrounded by two extremely large land superpowers. Not a good plan. Like, the problem Shiniyama had is he was literally trapped by superpowers. To his north was the Pythium superpower. To his east was the Tianqi superpower, and in the ocean was the Atlantis superpower. So there was no easy weak target for him to attack. And the thing is, he never is going to hold... The idea of Shiniyama holding the water from Atlantis is a pipe dream. It just is never going to happen. So, like, one thing is you just have to understand that. And I hope, if nothing else, I hope he learned that. I hope we made that painfully clear. That with just trivial amounts of effort, I was able to keep him out of the ocean while fighting multiple other front wars. It cost me some, so he did extract a cost. But he never did anything, and this is, I think, how you have to think about it strategically. How are you going to solve your major problems? And his major problem was he has two very strong superpowers as land neighbors. The only way to solve his problem would have been shipping his way and, like, either switching alliances reasonably quickly and getting people to cede him deals until he himself is a superpower. And I think Shiniyama definitely has good late game stuff they can do, and he showed a lot of it. The bone grinding communions, you can do Banefire and stuff, which is a good late game spell. You have Water Fire, which is a pretty good cross path for late game. And then you have the Phoenix Pyre Bakemono White Mages, which are pretty good, but anyway, they're kind of okay. They worked a couple times. But that's what they say, right? 1 out of 10 times it works every time. So anyway, that's the Shiniyama story. For Relay, they were top of middle of the pack. Like there was a period where they were really the number 4 power, and not very far behind 1 and 2. Especially if you consider that Relay, Middle Age Relay, I think is one of the stronger nations in the game. So I think at this point they were definitely poised where they could have won. When they fought me, I got a strategic edge on them because I jumped on their capital really fast. But they had plans for teleporting, Soul Slaying shenanigans, and they had Ring of Returning Assassins and things like that. But I mean, I had water bottles and stuff. I was prepared for the assassins. And I also had plans for the magic duelers. Not for the magic duelers, for the, just Ring of... I can't even remember what I did with those, but, he was sending people to Ring of Returning either a Water Elemental Summon or something else. I can't even remember what he did, but he never really had a Doom stack that he felt comfortable facing off against mine. And I'm trying to think if he could have. Because I was probably going to win a Water Elemental War. Though you can make a lot of Water Elementals as Relay with the Communion. And then Darkness, that kind of doesn't really go either way. But he has bigger Communion. So potentially, if while I was trying to take his capital, if I had to worry about Master and Slave coming down... when in a Communion with Magic Pen gear, that would have been really hard. It's kind of like one of the Relay and Trump cards that should be coming out by turn 100, at least. Sooner. But by then, you definitely are worried about it. So, I think Relay did a really good job. But then, I don't think they played their hand terribly well against me tactically in terms of how they scripted their armies and all that for this war. And they also kind of retreated to the throne. But Relay also was a sub at this point too. So anyway, you always have to thank the subs for coming in and doing the best they can. And sometimes for subs, you know, they want to do a good job, but they don't want to put in tons of time, which I understand too. It's just kind of like play the nation gracefully. But I was expecting this war to be way harder. And so this actually being, I don't want to call it easy, but significantly easier than I expected, was a huge boon for me. It was a huge boon. Especially when you consider at the end, Tianqi was very close to finishing his thrones. He really only had a few more to get. And if he had played the last turn, he probably would have been one throne behind me at the end. So this war, even taking like 10 turns longer, that may have been the difference between me like winning and losing. And then if like my major, I only had 2 stacks. I basically had 2 stacks that conquered all of Relay. And if either of those stacks got crushed, I was going to be in deep shit. So I never lost a major battle in the Relayan War, and that was a big deal for me. And that normally doesn't happen. I mean, normally in a war, you're going to at least lose like 1 major stack or something like that. So that was the Relayan War. We talked about Shinuyama. Vanarus, they had their rise to power, where they looked like they were going to get really strong. Vanarus, for a while, like especially right around here, I was thinking, oh shit. Like, what have I done? Because I kind of encouraged Vanarus to attack Pythium, because for Vanarus, I think it was the right move. But then I was like, what have I done? I've, like, welcomed a true blood nation into the late game. And storm demons and stuff can go underwater okay. Like, they can still shoot underwater and other things, so I was like, fuck. But, Tianqi made it reasonably... I won't say quick work, because it was a very complicated, long, grindy war between them, but Tianqi ground them down. I think they just had a much better economy, especially a gym economy. Like, if you look at Tianqi, well, it's not that much worse. Now, Vanarus is kind of close, actually. Honestly, the best thing about Tianqi is they just get such economy out of Imperial Geomancers. Those guys are so good. So good. Income, gym income. Okay. It would be fun to kind of go retell some of the stories down here, but honestly, it's so cluttered with all that, because we had 20 nations. It's so cluttered, it's really hard to tell. Here's Marignan. Marignan was doing well, and then they got eaten. Maybe we just click on everybody. Here's Arco. They were doing well until, I think, Pythium was the one that ate them. Yeah. Yeah, you can see basically their ups and downs are echoed by Pythium. Pythium, I think they ate... Yeah, they ate Arco. I'm not sure who they ate next. It looks like they ate this nation. I'm not sure who that is. Oh, it looks like they ate some of... Yeah, they ate a lot of Fascia. So they ate Pythium. I mean, they ate Arco, then they ate Fascia. They might have eaten somebody else before that. Ulm, they were doing okay. They held out for a while, but then Tianqi ate them here. But I think they got in kind of more wars than they could handle. Another thing, too, that's kind of interesting if you look at Ulm. They were going in against Pangaea, and if you look at Pangaea, Pangaea was kind of getting wrecked here. They were going in it with Yis. But you can see right from the beginning, Yis got... Look at all the land that Yis got. Yis got all this land from fighting Pangaea. Look how much Ulm got. You can barely tell. And in the video, I'm not sure you can tell at all. Maybe I just click all these off so we can actually see this thing. So I can only do relevant parties. So if you look at Ulm... Yis and Pangaea. these guys, like, this is when they went in on Pangaea together. But look who got all the spoils. So, like, there was nothing good about this deal, really, for Ulm. At all. So, I don't know. It's a little bit like... I think it's worth thinking about who your bedfellows are going to be as you go to war, and, like, whether you're set up to get a large part of the spoils or not. And they were in this war against Satis. And the thing is, and I think this is another thing that's important, is understanding who are good matchups and who are not good matchups. And the thing is, Satis, middle-aged Satis, if you rush them, you might be able to kill them as Ulm before they get a lot of things online. But I would say Satis with Foul Vapors and Skelly Spam is like a hard counter to Ulm. Like almost as hard a counter as you're going to find. So, especially in the early mid-game. You know, when it's unlikely Ulm's going to have really any way to get poison resistance on its troops. Yeah. They don't have the mages for it. They're probably not, it's probably not going to be a research priority. There's like a bunch of reasons. So Ulm, I think this was a somewhat voluntary war with Satis. They should have tried to get out of the war with Satis and then like fully put themselves in the war with Pangaea potentially, and then maybe they would have gotten a portion of the spoils. But some of that is just like, oh, I'm gonna kill Satis or something. Like, you have to understand the national matchups, and this was a really bad one. The good thing is, if you're Ulm in this conflict, you're winning the conflict. You just give them a little bit of land, maybe not that much, and they probably will take it. But anyway. Like, it was not a good war for him. Like, look at that. Okay, so that's Ulm. And that was Yis. Yis, actually, they did pretty well for a long time. This is when I started attacking them, and then this is when it went to hell. Next up, we have Mictlan, and we'll put up Tianchi. You can see these guys danced together. But they got eaten, you know, mostly within about 15 to 20 turns. So that was a pretty one-sided war. So who all did Tianchi fight? Tianchi fought Mictlan. They fought Ulm. And then they fought Satis. So all this land ended up getting... almost all this land ended up getting co-opted into Tianchi. And then after that, they didn't really get any bigger until Vanarus came around. And then you can see as Vanarus started going down, they got the last of their kicks up. So that was Tianchi for you. Next up, we had Agartha. Now, Agartha was fighting Arco for a long time. And then Arco, anyway, I think Agartha, I can't remember who was the aggressor here, but you can see they kind of mirror each other. Grindy War not necessarily going anywhere, but then I think Arco had a reasonably huge defeat, at which point Agartha mostly conquered them. Now, who conquered Agartha? That is a fine question. It was not Tianchi. Was it Vanarus? It could have been Vanarus. Was it Pythium? Could have been Pythium. I feel like it might have been Pythium combined with Vanarus. I don't actually know where Agartha spawned, if we're being completely honest. I feel like it's around here. Here is Agartha. So who had this at the end? Yeah, Pythium ate part of them. And then I think Vanarus ate the other part. And Tianchi might have even gotten a little smack roll. So I think Agartha truly got, like, picked apart by 3 big nations. I think that's what happened to him. It doesn't look like Tianchi got much. It looks like he primarily got split between... Oh, wait, no. Yeah, it looks like he primarily got split between Pythium and Vanarus, who both were gaining a little bit of ground during this time. It looks like Pythium gained most of the ground, and it looks like Vanarus vultured a little bit at the end. If I had to guess just from looking at the score graphs. So that was Agartha. Next up we have Satis, who was basically getting... I think they got rushed by Ulm, and then they almost died, but then they fought back out of their capital, and then, you know, showed Ulm a thing or two, and then Tianqi put them down. Pangaea, very, very well out of expansion, but then they ran into Morvarks they didn't have an answer to. Jotunheim did pretty well out of expansion, hung tight for a little bit. I'm not sure, who's Jotunheim at war with? I want to say they were at war with Agartha. I think they were spawning around the same place. I don't really know where they are, and I'm not really going to look at it, but I think that's what happened. But I could be wrong. Vanarus. They also could have been the... Actually, it looks like they were the ones that ate... I think they were. I know where they were. Jotunheim, we fought a big battle in Jotunheim. Jotunheim was right over here. They got eaten by a combination of... I think Vanarus picked a little bit off of them, and then, but mostly by Pythium. So if we look at Jotunheim, it's going to be Pythium that we see eating them. Yeah, you can see over this period Pythium is getting bigger. So that's what's happening. Vanarus, already talked about. Bandarlog. I think they were part of the Agartha attacking at the beginning, but then... Or no, they were part of attacking Phalegra at the beginning. So I think they were fighting with Phalegra, but then I think Arco might have eaten both of them. No. Pythium? I'm not sure who ate them. I am not sure. That is a part I am not super confident about. I know Arco... I mean, I know Phalegra was getting 3v1'd. But then they fought back. Part of... I think the 3v1 was Arco. I think it was Arco and Bandarlog. Okay, Bandarlog got eaten by Tianqi. So part of this initial growth is eating Bandarlog. Like from here to here is Bandarlog getting crapped upon. So yeah, they were killing... I think by this time he had also eaten Micklin. Or no, Micklin came later. So I guess he ate Bandarlog, then he ate Micklin. But yeah, Phalegra had a little bit of a resurgence as people were eating the gangbangers, and then they died out themselves. So next up we have Phaeacia. Phaeacia did pretty well. I think they were getting in on some of the Jotunheim action, if we pull Jotunheim up. Yeah, looks like they got some of that action. But then they ended up getting basically completely walloped by Relay. So here they were, Relay ended up kind of conquering them. And I think Vanarus got some of it too, but I could be wrong. Who got... It looks like... This is a really steep fall off. I'd expect to see a really steep jump up here on somebody. Who would it be? I mean, it could only be Pythium. Okay, Pythium must have taken a bunch of coastal stuff that Phaeacia had right here. And that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. And then I think these two picked things off of them. And that looks like what happened. So that's Phaeacia. Next up we have me, which was just a very straight climb upwards until we had some grinding here, which was actually me, I think, just preparing and putting up Nexus. So this was like calculated. And fording up here. And then we have Relay we've already looked at. We have Pelagia, who is my my first war. You can see they were pretty big. If we compare them to myself, they were bigger than me. Then I got like a little bit bigger than them. I had kind of a slow expansion. And then as we were fighting, it slowly went my way. If we look at how this went with Relay and I, we can see Relay was fighting, but he lost a few battles. If Relay had won a lot of the battles, he would have gotten a lot more of the spoils. As it turns out, he got a little bit, but not a ton. I got most of the Pelagia stuff, which was, of course, really good for me. But I also earned it. Like, I killed all the Pelagia stuff. I don't think Relay hardly killed anything. He lost a lot of his armies, but... And then, yes, we've already talked about yes. So that is it for the provinces. We'll go ahead and just flip through the other graphs. We're not going to talk about them like with the grand history of the world like we've done for this one. Okay, next up we have forts. You can see Tianqi was the leader for a while, but over time I went and took it over, and then I just went crazy and I decided to fort every single province. And indeed I did. Indeed I did. So good luck rating me. And this period of time right here where I went crazy on forts, this also was the period of time where I was basically flat on income. I mean on province gain. Right, like things were a little bit slow. Okay, so I started right here. That was right here. So here's when I started forting and here's when I ended. So this period of like dormancy and forting up was really in preparation for a final offensive. So as you see, this point where I like look stagnant, I was not stagnant. I was basically always doing something. But yeah, after that, the third place was, I think, Vanarus for forts. Vanarus had a lot of forts. And then Tianqi was forting up a little bit at the end, but not that much. Next we have income. Income, the thing, okay, I mean, yeah, my income went a little crazy. Some of this was from forting as I went through this. You can see the income was way more steady than provinces. Like provinces, we have that flat period, but income you can see is just super steady through this whole thing. And there's a few reasons for that why income is basically a smoother upwards trend. One is my Dominion is trying to catch up with my armies. So Dominion is kind of like lagging behind my armies as my armies conquer stuff. And what that means is even if I'm not conquering stuff for a little bit of time, as my good Dominion sweeps in behind me and gets preached up, my income's going to keep growing. And the second thing is that when I was like in this peaceful period, I was forting up, and that was also kicking my income graphs up, even though I wasn't conquering stuff. So anyway, that's what was happening here. But what I really want to call your attention to is just like, look at this period. This is like turn 60. Turn 60, Tianqi was the richest, barely with me behind. Then I was the richest with Tianqi barely behind. By turn 70, we were all tied with Pythium. All three of us were tied for income. We each had the exact same amount. 10 turns later, turn 90, still all tied, but now Tianqi's in front and I'm maybe a little bit behind. 10 turns after that, this is probably... Well, this is probably turn 90. I probably was fast forwarding a little too much. Because wait, turn... Wait, no. I've got it messed up. This is turn 100, this is turn 50, this is turn 150. So turn 100, turn 90 is here. So turn 90, I'm a little bit ahead. I'm starting to pull ahead, but barely. Like, they're still getting right up to me, but we're basically there. This would be turn 50, so this is probably turn 60. We're basically all the same income. And that's going to continue basically through turn 90. Turn 60 through 90, we're basically all the same size. But I just start pulling away after that. But there's a long period of very important late mid-game where we were all basically the same size. And you can see, like, one of the approaches you can look at is like, look at Shiniyama and Vanarus. Okay, so here I'm flashing Vanarus, so you see that line. Here I'm flashing Shiniyama. See, Vanarus made a play, and they were basically the second biggest player after they had made that play. Unfortunately, they got targeted by TNC. But if TNC just decided to attack Shinuyama, this would have been the same graph for Shinuyama as it was for Vanarus. The difference is, and TNC did attack Shinuyama at the end to get their throne. So this could have been either nation. And really, what they should have done, in my opinion, is they should have teamed up, because like TNC was going to attack one of them. They should have teamed up to go after TNC. Probably. But if I joined the coalition, which they wouldn't have to have invited me into, I might have just voluntarily joined it, then they probably would have to leave. So, but I would know that, and I want them to weaken TNC, so I probably wouldn't join it. Because I knew they would make peace if I joined it. So I'd probably just let them fight and eat TNC, if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, but that's interesting. I think if you look at like Vanarus, they made plays, man. This was such a huge thing for Vanarus to do. They basically doubled in size. It was huge. If they made it, if they really got their blood economy going too in the late game, all those storm demons. I saw a lot of storm demons in the late game, but I don't know if I saw a tremendous amount. And storm demons are nuts in the late game. Okay, so that was income. Next, gym income. Basically the same story. Turn 50. There's like 4 of us who are tied now. Vanarus is in there. By turn 90, 3 of us are now tied, but Vanarus has fallen behind. By turn 100, I am way ahead. This is when I lose Maelstrom, I think. So I drop way down. Climb back up. But you can see Vanarus getting a lot of income from attacking Pythium. Yeah. So anyway, pretty cool to look at. Relay, TNC was very close to my gym income. What this does not show is it does not show Arcane Nexus. If you were to look at Arcane Nexus, well, let's look at it. We don't have to theory craft. We can know. If you were going to look at Arcane Nexus, okay, what was my total gem income? 50 plus 130, so it's 180, 260, 310, 360, about 360. So my income was 360. Casting 3 wishes a turn though. So what I did though, with having my wish farm in Nexus, Nexus was pulling in 208 pearls, but all these were getting put into Wish, right? So it was probably a little more than that a turn. And then if we look at my Astral income, this plus my Nexus income basically all just went back into Wish. So if, what did I say? 360 or something? I think I said 370. So if we were 370, but we subtract 80 out for Astral. Well, no, because we got some more. Well, we'll subtract all this out for Astral. So we're at 290. Yeah, somewhere around there. We're around 290 for income if you take Astral out, because that and Arcane Nexus are just going to go into Wish. And then if we say, what's the value of the 3 wishes, where I was wishing for gems? The pearls I get from that are going to count. So basically it's going to be 25. It's going to be 25 times 7. Which is 175 times 3, because I had 3 wishes per turn. So that's 600 minus 75, so it's 525. So I was getting 525 net gems from my wish farm. Which we'll plot all this out on the graph, which way I want to come up with it. So this number right here for me, for gem income, is this is the 370 number. But what my real income was, factoring in all the canceling out whatnot of Arcane Nexus and the wish casting, was like 525 on top of this. So I think maybe I don't know if that math is 100% right, but basically it would have been this plus itself plus half. So I really had like 3 times the gem income of the next player. I think maybe even a little more. So that was really what gave me a huge strategic edge in the late game. And that's why I was just able to completely roll Pythium. I mean, he couldn't find me. I was doing 4 flames from the sky a turn. I'm murdering Gwenner every time I felt like it. Huge amounts of green lions. Just, they wouldn't have been able to fight me. Research. TNG won, so they were very scary very early. Pythium was next. Vanarus. Was this Vanarus? No. Relay. No. Who the hell is that? Oh, yes. Yes was actually in second place for a long time, and then third, and then last. Not last, but and then we caught up after that, and then Vanarus would have been the 4th to finish, and then Shiniyama eventually finished around turn 100. Dominion. This one's kind of interesting. You can see the strongest Dominion early was Yis, I believe. Yis is actually in a pretty strong spot. Then Mr. Hands got involved. But we were actually very high with Dominion. We were very conscious about using our Holy Threes to preach very early. So we were either in 1st or in 2nd place for Dominion for a while. And we were doing pretty good. But then we stopped growing. And a lot of that had to do with somebody dom pushing on our border, which was TNG. And he was just... My Dominion was high because I was preaching. I was preaching everywhere with Holy Threes. And they can preach up to Holy 6. I mean, to 6 candles. But TNG got his Dominion up through just building temples literally everywhere. So he was dom pushing like crazy. And so when he started doing this and I wasn't able to get my Dominion where I needed it to be, and I was starting to put more people preaching, then I was like, well, I've got to build temples too. And so then I built a shit ton of temples, and then my Dominions started going up. And about this time is when I started building forts. And once I started building forts and like forted temples everywhere, so they couldn't be raided, that's when my Dominion just went fucking crazy. And then you can see at the end when I was conquering Pythium, I was going nuts again. But, like, was I going to win through dom pushing? No. Like, you can see, the other major superpower, TNG, his Dominion was growing at the end, so he was able to withstand all the dom pressure and more. But he was putting a lot of resources into preaching. But this was the temple war that TNG started, but I think it's fair to say that I finished. Army size. Army size is interesting. Pythium is the front runner for a long time. Yis had a lot of troops. Oh no, he did not. Who is that? Is that Vanarus? Yeah, Vanarus had a little period of time where they were the number 1. And then here... God, they lost a lot. It looks like they lost a lot at the same time as Agartha did. So it looks like Vanarus was the one that ate Agartha, because I see a lot of losses happening on the same turn, which means usually catastrophic battles on both sides. So that was pretty big for them. They lost about half their army, but then they built it back up, and then they really had it really till the end. There was a really big fight at the end, which they basically brought everybody, and I think they barely lost it. But I never saw it, because that was the Astral Window fight that I'm My astral window got blocked. Feels bad, man. But yeah, I think this was the Vanarusian War, where Vanarus, it looks like they didn't really take major casualties as they were kind of winning against Pythium. And then here was when I was fighting Pythium, and you can see, I mean, Pythium was just getting completely crushed. Just flames from the sky for a turn. You can't do shit. You really can't. It's just debilitating as a human nation. I was wiping out their mages. And if it was a weak army, then I'd just kill it with mine. But if it wasn't, then I would just literally nuke it out of existence. And he had domes up, but it was not enough. It was not enough. TNG, you can see they had a big chaff building campaign. They were the biggest army size for a while. A lot of this is foul spawn and undead and whatnot. We eventually caught up. I think the main mechanism we caught up with was, I mean, some of these were high quality troops, but most of these were thralls from getting our blood economy going. So I would say, in terms of like armies, I would say TNG still had the biggest armies at the end. Because mine weren't really, I had the scariest armies. My armies were much smaller, but higher quality. TNG had more chaff. Even though it shows me winning the chaff war, this stuff was just patrol chaff from my blood economy. They were not, it was just thralls. They were not actually units that I would put in combat. Whereas TNG had foul spawn and stuff they would put in combat, and wolves they would put in combat. And theoretically I could have. Anyway, that's that. For throne points, he stalled this turn. He had already conquered Pythium, I mean the Vanarusian throne, so he was going to claim that one this turn. And then he had 2 more he was about to take this turn. So potentially he would have ended right here. So that's that. Well, that is that. I can't believe that I won. I mean, I kind of can, but I kind of can't. I can't believe the game lasted so long. I feel like I've learned a ton, which I feel like I say that every game, but I really feel like I did. Things I would do differently. I think I played it pretty well, man. I think I pushed the line of how aggressive and big I could get without attracting the ire of the world. Eventually I did attract the ire of the world. But eventually that faded. And I was able to do that by holding on Pangaea. That was the major accomplishment of the game for me, I think. If I had lost Pangaea to TNG, I'm pretty sure I would have lost the game. Maybe. But if I was able to keep Nexus up, which I was gunning at, I would have taken it back most likely, if he didn't literally have all of it. And that would have been weird for TNG, because I would have pushed back, I think, into taking this from him. And I would have done it with the help of other players. If he took Pangaea from me, he would have been the clear #1 baddie. Even if I had Nexus up, people would have tried to take it down, but I think people would have been united against TNG. But I don't know. It's hard to say how these things would play out. Shiniyama seemed to be convinced he was going to fight me hell or high water, but... You know, if he had like all of this, including Pangaea, and then Pythium pushed up, and I was relegated to a few coastal provinces... That would have been really bad. I wouldn't have had any of this blood economy, and a huge part of my army was my blood economy. The best parts of my army were storm demons and stuff, so... That would have been really rough for me. I don't think it's really sunk in now, because I was super prepared to give it up, but not like to walk away from it, but to cut some losses. Yeah, if that had happened, I don't know how I would have won. It would have been really hard. So I guess that's the major thing. Like, that was a huge accomplishment, being able to hold. And a lot of that was Mr. Hands being able to potentially... He did fuck up because I apparently didn't give him quite a high enough magic path to do it, but him being able to mass enslave those chaff armies, pick off super combatants, we were killing tarts left and right. So there were a bunch of things that we did to slow TNG down from actually taking this. But that was a pretty sizable win for us. And it made sense. Like, this was, him attacking me was not a bad move, and I've never said it was a bad move. But him doing it and it taking so long and not working ended up costing him, because that was this period in the game where he was really flat. Meanwhile, I was growing. So he either needed to do it and, like, finish it, or he needed to kill somebody else, I think. But that was kind of, I think, where the game was decided, where he was trying to take it from me, and he couldn't. He could have won by not taking it from me and going and eating somebody else. Or he could have won by taking it from me. And if he had done either of those, I'd be in trouble. But I think one of the only ways I could have won, maybe a different way to say it, is that he tried to take it from me and fail. And so while it was really frustrating that it was happening, that I was getting attacked by him, by Shinuyama, by Pythium all at the same time, it was potentially a very good thing for me, which I think is weird looking back on. That actually him attacking me was really good for me, because I was able to defend it. I had barely adequate forces in place. I could hold. And meanwhile, I was making progress on another front. And holding while you make progress on another front is often plenty good. So, I think that's an important learning. I think for him, the learning for him is either come up with some way tactically to win. I don't know specifically what I would have done in his case. He played it pretty smart. He tried not to lose his whole army, which I was prepared to take if he fucked up. But maybe he should have pushed his luck harder and risked more? I don't know. I felt like I was pretty punishing, but maybe I wasn't punishing enough. Or maybe he wasn't risky enough. Yeah, so, and I'm not honestly quite sure what I would have done if I were him. I really don't know. For Pythium, God, what would I have done as Pythium? I mean, Pythium was in the same thing. If they had conquered me and won, it would have been good, but I was holding both of them off, which I'm kind of impressed with myself at. Because they're both scary land nations. One of the things that really worked out for me is I never saw the Royal Malakui in my first war with Pythium. And I think that was because TNG had just killed it, because they had a little skirmish up here. I think he got it with an assassin. So that was something that worked out very, very well for me. Trying to think what else. What would I have done if I were Pythium? If I were Pythium, I think strategically these two guys attacking me and splitting this was good for both of them. It's just that it didn't work. And for Pythium, not only did it not work, but I was winning. For TNG, he was slowly winning, but very, very slowly and at great, great, great cost. Where if you're winning very slowly at great, great, great cost, you're actually kind of losing. Because, like, what's the payback period for the... Like, he got this from me, and he got this from me. He got 2 provinces from me. They were good provinces. They had pretty high gem income. But you look at how much stuff... There's not enough time in the game for those 2 provinces to pay themselves off. So. Anyway. So that was a good idea. I would have given it a try. I think if I couldn't make significant progress in like 10 to 15 turns, I would have cut losses and run, though. That's something I think I'm pretty good at, is I will very quickly try to get out of unprofitable wars. especially if I'm the aggressor. If I'm the aggressor and it's not working, then I will cut tail and run, or what is it? Cut something and run. I don't know. I'll cut losses and run. That's for damn sure. If I'm the aggressor in a war and I'm not making any progress for 10 or 15 turns, unless the other person is like an imminently going to win, then in my Ulm game, Relay was gonna, the second I made peace with Relay, he was gonna kill Bandarlog and win. So in that case, I didn't, because I had no confidence that Bandarlog would defend themselves if I made peace. But in general, I will cut losses and run every time I'm not winning as the aggressor, pretty decisively. So I think that's a learning, I don't know if you want to take, but it's a learning you might consider. Don't stay in costly wars, like Vietnam. Okay. But actually, that's fucked up. You also shouldn't, in real life, you shouldn't be in unethical wars either. It's kind of, unfortunately, the lesson that the politicians learned from Vietnam is you can't get in a long, grindy war, right? Where it's like, hey, we shouldn't have been there in the first place, guys. Anyway, not to wax too political on the after-action review. But, you know, Dominions has some correlations with real life, in the slightest. What else? We've talked ad nauseum this whole series about Shiniyama. I think we're going to leave that. We could have imagined an alternate universe where Yis won our war, and then Yis got all of this. That would have been very scary. Yis conquering the whole lake system. Probably scarier than Atlantis. I feel like Yis has a better late game with the Kernel Druids, who are really good. The Morvarks scale pretty well into the late game, but not great. Hard to say. I don't know. Atlantis has a good late game, too. Pretty good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. What are final thoughts on the build? Mr. Hand's the fucking man. He basically solo won the game for me. I wish I had gotten a better bless. What would a better bless have been? Arcane Finesse, not a huge deal. I should have gone magic weapons for these idiots. That would have made them pretty special. And I should have gone fire shock resistance, which would have made them also pretty special. Not like 2 reinvigoration and magic resistance. And penetration. Like, no, fuck no. Give me like a little MR, maybe like the 1, and then magic weapons, and then fire shock resistance. It would have helped versus Yis a lot, having fire resistance for the fiery breath thing. And then magic weapons would have been good against their thugs. Yeah, it would have been really good. Popping Fog Warriors and stuff. Once Fog Warriors came online, it would have shattered me in this game, but if I had magic weapons, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Or not as big of a deal. So the paths, everything else, Mr. Hands was the shit. In fact, I don't know how I'd play underwater again without taking Mr. Hands. I don't know how you, after watching this video, could play underwater and not take Mr. Hands. I mean, I do know. If there's something very critical you need in your bless that Mr. Hands can't provide, then I will excuse it. But if you have good stuff and you don't need a heavy bless, but you just need a little bit of astral and earth, or that would even be passable, and you pass up on Mr. Hands, I'll be fucking watching. I'll know. And with that, guys, Mr. Hands has ascended to the high office of Pantocrator in the sky. And thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.